Hello there, back again with another new episode of NMPC Plus. If you're watching on YouTube, we wave to you, we bless you, and if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we also greet you in the name of our Lord Jesus. Well, it got really formal all of a sudden. In any case, my name is Josh. I'm the worship pastor at New Mercy Palisades Church. I am joined, as always, by Pastor Bobe. Hello, Pastor Bobe.
Hello.
And I am joined by Pastor Key. Hello, Pastor Key.
Hello.
How you guys doing today?
Good.
Good?
I'm sleepy.
Sleepy? Yeah. Today's a bit of a warm one. It's actually the warmest it's going to be all week, and it's hitting like low 60s, I believe.
It's crazy.
It's really nice today.
Honestly, prime golfing time as I'm really sporting this hat. This hat is probably going to be the look for me all year, all season, as it is my golfing hat. I actually got to play a few rounds, which I'm so thankful for. And so I guess maybe to start, kind of go around the table here. Like, what's your favorite spring activity? Like, do you have something that you like to do with your families? Do you have something that you do, just by yourselves? I know, Pastor Key, you're a big fisherman.
Yeah.
You go out on the water and you fish. Is that one of your favorite spring activities?
That's my favorite spring activity next to golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
When did that start for you?
Pandemic.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I was saving up. Well, actually, the thinking behind it was hiking is nice, and I like hiking.
Sure.
But you get tired of hiking.
Yes.
You can only do that so often.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I know.
So I wanted something where I was outdoors, where it was relaxing, but also it's kind of an intentional fun activity.
Yeah.
So fishing and kayaking, light kayaking, not like the intense water.
Right.
Rapids.
It's just kayaking enough to get out onto like some still open
onto
water.
the water, and there's something so peaceful and rejuvenating about that.
Yeah.
So I started in the pandemic. I've always wanted to do something like that, but I think the pandemic gave me incentive.
Yeah.
To get outside. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you been out on the water recently?
Not yet. My very expensive kayak has a hole in it.
Wow.
Can you get it fixed? Like
After
warranty?
a year, there's something happened. It's an inflatable one, but one of the higher end ones.
Yeah.
And I emailed them, and they said I got to spray it and see where the leak is, and they'll teach me how to fix it. I'm just like, can you just replace it?
Yeah.
It's only been a year.
Yeah.
But, so that was a year ago when they sent me that email. I just haven't gotten around to doing that.
I see.
So hopefully I'll do that this spring.
I see. Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can get that fixed soon, or at least find some kind of a replacement for it.
Yeah,
No.
so there's this one place in upstate New York, pretty close to us actually, where they have kayaks that are really cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worth it. So I might do that.
Yeah.
So
All right. That sounds good. What about you, Pastor Bobe? Do you have a favorite like springtime, or it's really just like if the weather's nice, this is what you like to do?
I like to go on a walk at Overpeck Park.
Ooh,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes like I'll just sit by the water because now they have like benches and like picnic tables. I'll just sit there and hang out with my iced coffee and just like enjoy the weather. Yeah. I started getting into doing things like that over the pandemic too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's a thing now.
Well, speaking of kayaking, my wife and I, we've been kayaking
Yeah.
on that little. Have you been?
Yeah, I've been long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. It's you get all burnt up because it's no tree cover. It's just straight
yeah.
sunbeams on your
Water
Yeah.
and legs.
and that's the problem with Overpeck. There's no trees.
Yep.
It's all pure sun.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Sure. No, I mean, it's awesome. You just got to make sure you wear the proper covering. I went kayaking with my wife one time, and we were out on the water. This was like down a river. We were out on the water for like 5.5, maybe 6 total hours.
Oh, no.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because it was one of those things. It's the Delaware Water Gap. We were,
Oh.
you start in one place, they drop you
Yeah.
off, you go down, you
Yeah.
start, and it's
no.
easy and all that stuff. And then it's like long enough where you can you can go off to the side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You if you brought food or anything,
Yeah.
you brought I think it might have been like Jersey Mike sandwiches that we put in a waterproof bag.
Yeah.
So we had
my
full lunch and
Yeah.
everything. And then we get back on the water. So by the time we finally got to the last stop. We take our boats out of the water. I was wearing shorts. I had sun, and like your knees are kind of like up and out. I
Yeah.
had the worst sunburn
gosh,
on the
yeah.
inside of my legs, like
Yeah.
Oh my God.
pretty far up the thigh.
Yeah, I bet.
Because I was wearing like swim trunks, and they're like kind of short. They were fairly like high up the thigh. I was like,
How do you walk?
I was waddling for I want to say like 10 days because
Oh my gosh.
the sunburn was pretty real.
Yeah.
So got to make sure you wear the proper covering.
Thank you for that image.
I'm happy that I can bless you with it. And if you're watching, I want you to think about that before. I don't know.
But yeah, when you're in the water, you really need to.
Yep.
I don't like sunblock.
Yeah.
So I tend to get those UV clothing.
Yes,
things.
yes.
It's much easier.
Yeah.
So, pro
Yeah.
tip.
I got to do better with the sunblock too. Every time I go out and play around the golf, my wife is like,
You
"Can you
have
please?
to.
Can you please?" And I'm like, "No, I have a hat." It's like I'll just get a wider hat because the sun's not gonna get me, and I still come back so burnt and so dark.
And
if I
the
don't
back
wear
of
it.
your neck too.
That's true. That's true. Yes.
The spray on sunblock makes it much easier.
Which is what I've switched to.
Yeah.
But
I
you
can't
still
s-
have to rub it in.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
What?
You still have to rub it in.
Why?
Like you can't just spray it.
Yeah,
you
you
have
gotta
to
rub
rub
it
it in.
What do you mean?
That's I know. It's not as effective.
What's the point of the
Otherwise, you're
spray?
gonna get
I'm-
like spray painted sunburn
Yeah,
lines.
you need to rub it in when you spray.
This is
so
news to
they
me.
have like the sunblock sticks that you can use.
Yeah.
That you can use to
Oh,
do
that
on your
seems
face and
painful,
stuff.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad likes those kinds.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Spray
Okay.
is the one for me.
Yeah. I like the spray too. I just this is news to me that you have to rub it in.
You do.
All right.
You know,
all
back in the day. Sorry.
No, all the skincare gurus tell us.
Back in the day, I actually avoided the sprays because people said there's something about if you inhale it,
Yeah.
and then I just
Yeah.
forgot about that.
Yeah. And
got
you stay
tired.
away from aerosol because of the ozone or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think they have the ozone stuff anymore in it, but yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, in any case, that was a nice detour. I don't know.
On sunblock.
Well, and whatever the case is, hopefully you're able to enjoy the weather. I especially feel for those that are like working from home right now because there's kind of like the illusion, like, oh, it's such a nice day. But if you're working like a pretty intense remote job that like has you in front of a computer all day, like this will happen to my wife, this will happen to me sometimes, where it's just like you got to get stuff done, and then the entire day passes.
gone.
Yeah.
So if you're watching, if you're listening, make sure that you enjoy some of this beautiful weather. It's going to rain soon, but make sure that you're enjoying this wonderful weather that we got going on. With that, we're gonna move to our sermon conversation, as we like to do here at NMPC Plus, and we have a treat today. You know, usually these podcasts, it's a lot of times I'm asking Pastor Key and I'm throwing to Pastor Bobe, but today we get to reverse that formula a little bit because primarily we're going to be speaking to Pastor Bobe because Pastor Bobe, you were the one that gave the message this past Sunday.
Yes, I did.
And, I'm just going to give you the floor for a little bit. I'm going to ask, can you please give us a recap? In fact, before I do that, though, there was an interesting thing that happened this past Sunday.
Yes.
A lot of interesting things. A few
Yes.
interesting things that happened this past
Please
Sunday.
do share.
But I just let me start with this.
Okay, go ahead.
How are you feeling on Sunday? How are you doing?
Sunday was so stressful.
Yeah.
From the beginning. Like from the moment I woke up, I was so stressed. Partly because, when the prep for this sermon was a little bit different and the way I wrote it was a little bit different.
Right.
So that was kind of stressing me out. And then it was my turn to get the bagels and coffee, which is no problem. But homegirl forgot her wallet. And I was like, oh, crap. So I had to ask my sister for some cash. Mind you, I'm like driving with no license. I'm like, So then as I'm texting Pastor Key that I'm going to be late, he calls me. And I was like, what can he possibly be calling me for? Because he never calls me. So I pick up and he goes, the pipes burst
Yep.
in the school.
Yep.
And we can't use the classroom
Yeah.
for the kids.
Yeah.
And I'm already stressed because like the one teacher that that was supposed to be there couldn't, so I had to ask for a replacement. Like, it was just a lot.
Yeah.
And that was like, I lost my crap in the
Yeah.
car. I was like, oh, okay. And then like he was like, what should we do? And I couldn't answer. So PK was like, why don't you think about it? And then we'll talk about it. I said, okay. And I hung up and I'm waiting for the bagels. As I'm thinking about this, I'm like, the devil is alive.
The devil
I'm
is
like-
alive.
The devil is a liar.
I was
yo.
like, oh my God. Like, what the? And like, as I was paying the lady, I made a face because I couldn't believe that like all of this happened within like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But thankfully, when we got there, the school custodial staff, they were working like really fast.
Yep.
So they got the water out, and then like Pastor Key and my Sunday school teachers, they just like made it work. But I was still stressed, but that was okay. And then I got up there and I preached. And I came down and, I was texting some of my friends after and they were like, oh, how did your message go? And I just said, it went.
It went.
There was no other words that I could
Yeah.
say because the whole thing, and then I had a PTA meeting after. So it was a very full day
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
But it was a very stressful beginning.
Yeah.
But after, it was very nice.
Yeah.
The PTA meeting went really smoothly. We had fried chicken for
Come
fellowship
on,
time.
somebody.
It was very good. And
Yeah.
then we had froyo.
Yeah.
Like me and some of the ladies, we went out to get froyo.
I wanted to go,
You're not invited. I don't know if you were invited though.
but then I didn't say anything.
Pastor Key. I didn't know.
You like how he drops that on you now?
Yeah, right? After because we didn't have a meeting yesterday where we didn't talk about this, You're so funny.
Why didn't you just hop into? You guys got into like a Jetta. Why didn't you just hop into
Yeah.
that Jetta?
You should have just been
'Cause
like, hey guys,
it was 4 girls.
4 ladies and Pastor Key.
Oh.
But that was a
you
very
should've
nice way to end my
Yeah.
very stressful day.
joined. Yeah.
I have to say, after the pipe burst, I gave you a call. I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch how Pastor Bobe is today.
Yeah.
See if
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
implodes.
I,
It was like morbid curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those listening and those kind of needing the context, there was like a strange. I guess it's a cold snap, but it's like an unexpected cold
Yeah.
snap
Yeah,
where overnight it just dropped like 31. Was it like 30?
20 something.
Was it 20
Yeah.
something?
Yeah.
Oh shoot, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden the temperature drops, which caused the pipes in our old building, the Palisades Park High School, and there were just like leaks in different places. Thankfully, there weren't leaks in like catastrophic places like on the auditorium stage or anything
Yeah.
like that, right?
For sure.
It's still a hard thing to have to contend with and deal with on a Sunday morning where you have to hand over responsibilities completely
Yeah.
to your teachers and to
Yeah.
Pastor Key, who's not usually there. And
Yeah.
man, I can really only imagine. I when I walked into the building that day, I was like, oh man, this is so terrible. It's good that it's not on the auditorium stage. And in my mind, I was kind of like okay about it because I just generally have a sort of, we'll get through this. We'll always get through this, right? Sort of attitude about things. And I was in the back of the auditorium, just sort of like looking around, surveying things. And then you came in, and I remember you came in. You said it in Korean, but basically, like in English, you just like, yeah. I mean, can you help a girl out? You gotta help somebody out right now. And I was like, I don't know what I can do for you right now.
It was one of those days.
Yeah, it's just one of those days.
It just
Shout out, like you said, to the custodial staff.
Yeah.
at Palisades Park High School.
Seriously.
They were on it, and they completely just made sure that we were still able to have our regular Sunday.
Yeah.
A little bit. A little bit altered, but it wasn't catastrophic.
No.
Not at
because
all.
wonderful people.
Yeah.
It could have been. And, just really, like you said, grateful to the custodial staff. So Kenny, who's the main guy on Sunday, he basically called all of the Pal Park
Yeah.
custodial staff.
For sure.
Like, and I asked one of them, did he call you out of bed? And he's like, yeah, I was sleeping. And they had these industrial, like, water vacuum
Yeah.
things going.
Yeah.
And by the time we started service, it was dry as a bone
Yep.
in the front.
Yeah.
And so people
Yeah.
barely even noticed.
Yeah, for sure. So, So that was that. That's the context. That is the setting for which Pastor Bobe is going to take the stage.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like the start of worship, throughout worship, all the way up to the moment your message starts, like what's going on? Are you able to center yourself at all? Or is it just like, hey, whatever happens, happens and I'm going to go?
I think by the time service started, everything was okay.
Sure.
You know, everything was settled. And so I was like, okay, I just have to settle me.
Yeah.
So I was, you know, during worship, I wasn't even looking around to see how many kids, nothing like that. I just looked straight forward and I was like, God, please help us, sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how I was like centering myself.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I got up there and I preached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A quick sidebar, put this off to the side, quick second, because if you preached
Yeah.
for the adult or the main congregation,
Yeah.
who was with the kids?
Normally I do a little video,
Yeah.
but I decided this Sunday it would be nice to have Pastor Key
Heyo!
switch with me.
I was supposed to have this week to do other stuff.
Oh yeah, but you know, I gave you everything. Yeah.
The first I heard about it was that Sunday.
Oh,
is
get
that
out,
right?
really?
Yeah, I was
No
like,
way.
I was in my mind, I was like, oh, Pastor Key's gonna give really great for him, and all of a sudden he's just away, and I'm like, where is Pastor Key? And I was like, we're gonna pray right now, and he texts back, I'm with the kids today. Have a great Sunday. I'm just like, what is
He
going
was cutting
on?
circles.
I saw that. I was like, what is that? He's never this involved with the kids,
Yeah.
and I was just asking.
But it was a good time. Like,
Yeah.
I really genuinely had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Even preparing it, I had to look for like fun pictures to illustrate
Yeah.
the story, and it was good times.
Yeah.
And the kids are more attentive than the adults sometimes. It's like amazing.
Yeah,
They definitely are.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're
here we
at
go.
it. We're at the main event here. I'm going to give you the floor if I can. If you could just try to recap the sermon, maybe give us like the general through line through everything, and then we'll just sort of take it from there. But yeah, could you give us that recap?
Yeah, I will, you know, we're in a series called Behind the Crown and we're looking into David, the life of David. I did something a little bit different where we looked into a psalm that David wrote because David is known to be a man after God's own heart. And David went through all different types of situations. And when I think about David, one of the things that is a big characteristic of David is how intimate he was with the Lord. And I couldn't think of any other place to look at but the Psalms. So we did that. We looked at Psalm 13 and I just added some other stuff from 1 Samuel to kind of show or talk about what it looks like to walk through the wilderness season because Psalm 13 is written when David is running away from Saul, and what it looks like to be honest and intimate or also develop intimacy in that type of season. So, you know, if you look at that psalm, it's the first two verses is between God and David. And then the second verse is like God, David, and other people. And then the last two is, I think, like a reminder of God's goodness. So, yeah, just looking at that. Yeah.
Yeah. The passage that you spoke out of Psalm 13 and the title of your message, I should say, it starts with "How long, O Lord?" And you know, it's I'm really just making the connection now. It's funny how you're saying that that the core of the message was all about intimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote down your three takeaways at the end of the message, and it makes a lot of sense that it's around intimacy. But it's funny because when you go back and listen to it, and when I was listening to it on the day in the room, there was a lot that I was thinking about where it's like, how long, Lord? I mean, that's basically like a lamentation of David, right? Like, it's funny how so much of the Psalms of David are lamentations of David.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it's also interesting how, like, when we couple or when we really look at the idea of intimacy, a lot of times what happens in the church is we think intimacy means romance. When that's true, That's one side of the coin. But the other side of that coin is sometimes intimacy, it is just absolute pure, raw, and unadulterated just lamentation.
Yeah.
Right? The ability to be so intimate with the Lord that you can even be like before God, how long, O Lord, will you forget me?
Yeah.
Like behind the pulpit, we say God never forgets you, but the idea you can be so intimate that you're like, how long, O Lord, will you forget me? Right? And I like the tension of that because it describes something, right? And so, I mean, when you talk about the intimacy of God, right? And even when you think about the intimacy of God with yourself, I mean, like how often do you think about like the how long, O Lord, those kinds of Psalms? Or are you more so focused on like, God, your name is so great and I will worship you and all that stuff? Like,
No, hell no.
What just came out of your mouth?
that was an intimacy. that was the intimacy of Bobe's spirituality.
Well, the premise is that you're walking through a difficult season, right? On a good season, or when I'm doing good, it's like, oh God, you're so awesome, whatever. I love you, whatever. But when I'm going through a tough season or when things are not looking so hot, it's like, but God, like, when, how am I going to get through this? Are you going to help me? I know you will, but am I?
Yeah.
Types of situations. And when I think about, I was contemplating on making this comparison, but like when you talk smack with somebody, like in real life, there's some kind of bond that happens. And the reason why I didn't make this comparison was because I'm not trying to condone like, gossiping or whatever.
Sure.
But when you go through a tough thing with somebody, or when you go and find like a common enemy, there's some kind of bond that happens, right? And I feel like part of like an intimate relationship is even knowing the ugly side, even knowing that, so. Yeah, but I'm not always like, oh Lord, I love you. In the darkness, in the dark, I'm like, but God, when is this over? How am I getting through this? Are you gonna help me? Because I know you say you will, but how are you doing that?
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah. Pastor Key, were you able to give the message a listen at all?
Yeah, I loved it. Just one thing that came to mind as Pastor Bobby was talking was, and what you were saying is this whole idea of in the thick of battle, there's intimacy that happens. That's why you hear about soldiers in the foxhole and things like that. They become super close, lifelong friends. But yeah, I mean, I loved a lot of what you said. I think one really poignant part was where you talked about, hey, sometimes you just need to cry. And the crying contains so much content, heart content. And the Holy Spirit actually engages that, right? And it even says the Holy Spirit groans with, wordless groans, right? And I thought that was really cool. It affirmed that, my cries are heard, my cries have content, my cries matter to God. That really stuck out to me. I think the other thing was, you mentioned this part where there's a special grace during seasons of wilderness. And during that time, you connected with God in the midst of that struggle, in your raw honesty with Him that you couldn't have other times, right? There's a learning that happened, intimacy and communicating that happened there that you didn't experience at other seasons. And that was very helpful as well. But yeah, there's a lot of what I loved about the sermon was there's a lot of earned wisdom from life, interacting with the Word of God. And that was really, I think a lot of people resonated with that. So,
for sure. Like you have to have the kind of intimacy with the Lord that allows you to even feel comfortable enough to say, "How long, O Lord?" Right? Like David has to know.
Yeah.
He just has to know that God is there and that he has the kind of access that he can just be like, and how long, oh Lord, will you forget me? Right?
Yeah.
When you think about it like that, it's such like a mind altering thing. And so in a lot of ways, Psalm 13 is the practice of intimacy, which I think we can sort of park that there. But while it is the practice of intimacy, I think Psalm 13, and also your message, for me, what it did was it kind of shed light, or it kind of uncovered, it sort of like take the cover off of a different thing altogether, which was the idea of lamentation, right? And
No, sorry.
And so what I wanted to do, or what I wanted to spend maybe the bulk of the time that we could today, was talk about the idea of like, I think we misunderstand lament and in the Christian ethic and the Christian economy. We sort of misunderstand the power, the, dare I say, the reason for lament. Because oftentimes when Christians lament, all we're doing is complaining. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't like my pastor. I don't like this church. I don't like the messages. I don't like the worship. I don't like the programs. I don't. And it's like, there isn't a lament. That is a complaint. And so I wondered if we could spend the bulk of our time clearly. Towards the end, I definitely want to bring it around back to the place of intimacy, because I think it's good. I think it's right. But can we just park here for a while and maybe talk about the difference between, like, I want both of us, both of you guys, to answer, what is the difference between lamentation or lamenting and complaining?
I think complaining is like what Jonah did. He's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to Nineveh,
Sure.
But then lament is more like a sorrowful expression, because it's not really complaining. It's not really the same, because when you have so much sadness in your heart, when you have so much or even regret, I feel like could kind of go in this category. When you have so much sorrow in your heart, that's when these things just kind of like spill out of you. It's not like I almost feel like sometimes laments are uncontrollable because there is so much there that is happening, and you don't necessarily have beautiful words to say, but you gotta say something. So it like spills out of you almost. Complaining is complaining. I have to think about how to explain complaining, because it's not just about not like complaining about what you should do. It's like that complaining normally comes from not being satisfied. But lament is not from that place. It's not about satisfaction. It's not me-centered in a way. Like, it's not selfish. But complaining feels very selfish.
Sure. Yeah. Pascal, what about you? What's the difference between those two?
For me, lamenting is taking your heart of pain and confusion to God and just expressing that authentically to Him. Complaining is what I see the Israelites doing in the desert, grumbling because they didn't have meat to eat, and nowadays all the examples you brought up, people complaining about their churches and things like that. It's, I don't know, it comes from a heart of selfishness, entitlement, rather than, lamentation still is a worship of God, and taking your heart to Him. I mean, there is a dimension of just letting it all out on Him, right? But still He's on His throne. Whereas complaining, it's like, you serve me. That type of
That's
thing.
good.
For
sure.
So that's basically it for me.
And it's in event, we'll kind of go back and forth between the ideas, but like lamenting. I don't see much intimacy in complaining.
Yeah.
Being like in a relationship with the Lord, like someone who complains and someone who is a serial complainer, generally I don't see that they have an intimate relationship with the Lord. Someone who has an intimate relationship with the Lord, I often find that they're more the lamenters, the ones that they voluntarily hold back their complaints, but when they are before God and when they're just at their breaking point, it's involuntary. They just like, how long, O Lord, will you forget me? Like, how long, O Lord, will the condition of this region or the condition of my family, the condition of my church or my own life, will it continue? Because I want to see good in the world, but all I see is bad. It's the other Psalm of David that says, Lord, you have, like, my enemies are prospering, but the ones who are faithful, they are not. And what's happening there, right? It's going before him and saying, in an intimate relationship, that is the arena where you can say, how long, O Lord, right? And so, like, in a lot of ways, I'm sure we all believe this, and I know this to be true in my own life. But you even mentioned this in your sermon, in which you have gone through those kinds of seasons. And it was, these aren't your words, it's kind of a paraphrase, but like in a lot of ways, like it's good to lament because it just results in what I'm calling like a net positive in the overall relationship of your heart, right? Like the moment is hard.
Yeah.
Of course, the season is hard. But when you look back on your life in those times of hardship and lamenting, it just, you are better because of it, because you went through something real, right?
Yeah.
I wondered if we might talk about that a little bit, about like, do you guys have examples or stories or things that you can think of right now in which lament to have worked out to be a net positive in your intimacy, in your relationship with the Lord? Is there anything that you can offer this conversation that says like, this is a time when I was lamenting and this is what it was and I am better now because of it, but it doesn't make it, it was very hard in that moment, but I'm better now because of it. Do you guys have anything like that in your lives?
Yeah. I think that season I was talking about in my sermon in seminary, that was interesting because that was a season where God was literally breaking everything that I knew to be true of me, my life, and God, my relationship with God. And the way I explain it is like, it felt like God was tilling the soil of my life. And while I knew God was working in me, it was not easy. It was not a happy time. I wasn't happy that God was doing this because it was not easy. It was a lot of tears, a lot of praying, a lot of like centering myself. And, like some of the things that came up during that time, I struggled with for like years before then and after.
Yeah.
And there's so many times where I ask God, how much longer am I going to have to deal with this? How much longer is this going to be my reality? Am I crazy? Like, did you not fix this? Did you not like work in this area of my life? But why is it that even after I graduated seminary, even while I'm pastoring, that I'm struggling with this stuff? Like, why is this happening? But in that, like, what in that moment it seemed like forever, but every time it's interesting because every time I ask like, God, how much longer are you gonna work on this part of my life? How much longer are you gonna work on, like, how much longer do I have to wait to be able to fully say God freed me of this, right? Every time I do that, God always reminds me, but look at how far you've come already. If you came this far, just imagine how much further you're going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like that. So that's always the thought I have. Yeah. When I struggle through stuff like that. And that to me is a net positive because it not only helps me, like it helps me to see how far I've come, but it also gives me a vision of what more God can do, what more God wants to do for me in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. Pastor Key, what about you?
Yeah, just a general statement about the experience of, lamenting in my life is I'll go through those seasons, and then at the end, or even time after the end, I don't have a measurable kind of pointer that I can be like, oh, this is the main benefit that I got out of it. But something about the struggle, there's an intimacy that I experienced there that it's hard to kind of grab onto, but I sense that my relationship with God has gotten deeper in some way, you know, and that's kind of probably, if you want to call it, net positive of any season of lament. Just, you might not see the tangible fruit of it, but in terms of just your relationship, you feel something there that is different.
Yeah.
I think, for me. Two instances that come to mind is seminary. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I feel like people who have it easy in seminary, I question their call. No, that's not a hard and fast rule, but I'm kind of glad you went through a hard time, Pastor Bobby. You know, not like glad, but you know, I see definitely God doing stuff there, and for me too, like probably one of the hardest scenes in my life, seminary. So hard to the point where, you know, I shared this before. I ended up on antidepressants because it was so low.
Yeah.
And actually, I still remember the moment I took the first pill. I think it was Zoloft or something like that. And I basically said to God, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And then I took it and I said, what are you doing? You know, and so kind of that whole "how long, oh Lord" type of thing was coming out. And I, you know, I will say he killed a lot of my pride during that season, or all those things. But I don't think those were necessarily the core lessons. I think the core lessons are more just breaking me down and then just leaning on him. I think one of the more recent things, there's a tragedy in my family and this past year, and just this morning, every day, I still have these moments to God where I just feel the intensity of that moment, and I just say to God, like, I have no idea what that was about.
Yeah.
I still have no idea why you allowed something like that to happen. I find myself cursing out, you know, the person that did whatever they did, and so there's that lament that's going parallel to other things that are happening in my life, and it's like I have no idea. If I were to write about this, it would be a psalm like, God, I have no idea what's going on here, you know, and it would still be phrased that way, and so that's kind of. And in terms of the net positive, there is I don't. The only net positive I can think of there is, it's made me realize I don't know a lot of things, and that's a good thing to know, I guess. But the other thing is that, it's making me go back to him and be like, wrestle with him. And I think there's something there that's happening. I don't know what it is, though. And so I think that's part of the process of lamentation. There's something happening as you're going through it. Oftentimes you have no idea what's happening or what it is that you're gaining per se. And I think that's an okay place to be.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. It occurs to me that one of the harder, I don't know, like, would you just a quick question of, would you agree that it's good to lament? It's a good thing to lament in the Christian life.
Yeah. I think it's healthy.
Yeah. So it occurs to me, though, that the reason people don't lament and the reason people don't know how to lament or whatever is because, like so many things in the Christian faith, they run up against the barrier of, if you're gonna do it, you need to do it perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, I don't know why my mind goes there.
No, that's a good point.
But it's the idea of, I wish more people just understood that. Let's take prayer, for instance.
Yeah. Mm.
How much of us don't pray, or how many of us, I should say, how many of us, like, we don't pray because we don't know how to pray perfectly.
Yeah.
Like pray perfect.
You're not good at prayer.
Yeah, pray perfect theological prayers or whatever. You know, I just had this conversation. It's about something sort of related, tangentially, but like I was talking about journaling. I had my wife and we had a couple over for dinner, and we were talking about journaling and how, like, you know, these guys have like shelves of old journals, right? Because they just have them and then they'd ask me, like, do you journal? I said I tried to, but I stopped because I used to go back and read my journal entries, and it's like it was like I was writing and I knew somebody was gonna go back and read it, so it was never really real, and it was never really raw and honest and intimate.
Yeah.
Some parts, some journal entries, but for the most part, I write like I want to be the next great theologian.
Yeah.
And in 200 years, I want people to discover my journals, and I want them to see how perfect of a person I was at 22. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a silly thing to think about. But anyway, we talk about prayer and how many people I know a bunch of people. I know a few people. I can think of a few people who say it's hard for me to pray because I don't pray well. I don't pray perfectly. And so that's not the point. The point is for you to do it. You, like, would you tell a baby not to walk because they don't walk perfectly? No, it's like you do it and you do it and you fall and you fail and then you do it. And I wonder if lament is another one of those things. Why? Because before I maybe unfairly linked like lamenting with complaining. I said, like, don't complain, but lament. And I wonder how many of us go, it's hard for me to lament because I don't want to complain. You know, it's that thing of like, I'm thinking about the one that wants to do it well but doesn't because they think they're not going to be perfect.
Oh, that's right. That's
right. And so how do we toe that line well? Like, because we're talking about intimacy, right? We're talking about in an intimate relationship with Jesus Christ, with our God in heaven, empowered by the Holy Spirit. How do we toe the line well where I don't know how else to say it, but it's like the target is we want to lament. And it's like a biblical lament. It is something that acknowledges that there is a higher power and he is always at work, but maybe you're not seeing what you want to see, and it's connected to the larger thing of justice and mercy. And okay, that's the biblical target line, right?
Yeah.
But what if we're not there? Is it still worth it to lament? Even if the lament comes out as a complaint. And if it comes out as a complaint, how then do we reel it back to something closer to a biblical lament?
I think the way I can't say that the way I lament is the same, like is good or theologically right or whatever, you know? But I think as you become more honest with God, and whether you're complaining or whether, you know, as you are developing this relationship with God, He will teach you that you were wrong. You can't, there is no way. My prayers are not perfect. Even now, my prayers are not perfect. And if there was any mistake that I've made in my prayers or in my thoughts even, with situations, you know, I know that God is telling me, Boba, you thought wrong about this.
Yeah.
Or that's not the way you should be thinking about this. This is the way you should be thinking about it. And like, that's how you learn. That's a whole process of like learning how to complain well, how to come to God with the difficult things. Because I'm not always happy that I'm suffering. I'm not always glad to be carrying this burden. And there are ways to suffer well, but the only requirement of doing that, of suffering well or lamenting well or perfectly, is to do it with God. That's it.
Yeah.
So as you come before him, he's going to teach you this is the right thing, or this is what I want you to say, or the Holy Spirit is going to reveal to you actually what your heart is desiring, what your heart is saying. So that whole thing, I think, adds to like, how do you what's complaint, what's lament? Sometimes I don't know. It's both. It can be both. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, the posture of humility is what transitions complaint to lament. When I look at complaint, I see at the heart of complaint a godlike posture. I know better than you. This is what I want. God, you serve me, that type of thing. But what's interesting is I see complaining in lamenting, but I see it when David is doing it, he still has a posture of humility. I'm not God. God, I'm not God. You're God, right? I'm confused. This is what's going on, but still, I'm bringing it to you because I really don't know, and just kind of that posture. You're complaining, but from a posture of humility. And I think that is the key for me, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, because I bring it up, but it's not like I have a perfect answer to it either, right? I just wonder, the same thing with prayer. Like, you're not going to know how to pray unless you do it.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to learn how to lament well and I think that's so key what you said. You said it in your message, and you also just said it right now, the idea of like to suffer well. Like there are so many things that we have to suffer through and we have to endure and to get through in this life, and so much of it has to do with how well you suffer. And the question naturally becomes, what does that mean to suffer well? And you're just clearly saying, and it's so key, you're clearly saying, what does it mean to suffer well? It means to suffer with the Lord.
Yeah.
It means to put all of your suffering before the Lord and say, God, what are you doing? Like, what is happening here? And yeah, I don't know, because something like this, I want to be as intimate as David here too. I do, but I also live in this world, and I'm so very easily distracted by the world's way of lamenting, which is complaining, which is to be self-centered.
I like the word that you used in your sermon, the phrase, we often, when we bring our complaints to God, we have this front that we put up.
Yeah.
This is a proper way of complaining. And I don't want people to be afraid of lamenting because they're like, oh, maybe this is not appropriate. I think what you're saying, Josh, is right. Just whatever it is, your authentic self, bring it all. And as best you can, do it with a posture of humility. Not necessarily fronting, but being like, God, look, this sucks. I'm going through this. I'm confused. What's going on?
Yeah.
And I will say more recently in my life, the more unfiltered I've been, the more raw I've been, the more I've given the Holy Spirit access to the real dark anger, pain in my heart. I've sensed God respond to those instances almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
And those prayers get answered like automatically. I'm like, I was such a freaking prick when I said that. I was like literally yelling at you at the top of my lungs. But it was to him, and I feel like there's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's just something there.
Yeah.
So
I think what's interesting when you read the Psalms is that when you see David going through these emotions, always it comes back to, but God, I know.
Yeah.
But God, you are. And I think that's so key. I think that's very important, because if you just stay in your complaint or in your sorrow, it's just going to be self-centered. But we have to, and I think I mentioned this last podcast, but David is somebody that lived, whose life was in God, not God was in his life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where you can see like the language, like you can see it in the language, you know. Oh God, this, but I know you are. I know you are still good. I know you are taking care of me. I know you will deliver me.
Mm-hmm.
And he reminds himself, but he also makes those requests too, if you read the other Psalms. So that, I think, even if like we have to remember God has so much grace for us. And it's unimaginable, it's unfathomable how much grace he has for us. And it's never to take for granted, but it's also to know that you can come with all those things, because his grace is bigger. He's not easily offended. I don't think.
Yeah.
You know, because if he was so offended, why would he answer Pastor Key when he was being a prick when he was praying that?
Sure.
You know, why would God answer me when I'm just like whining my way through my season?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we also have to remember that is a characteristic of God.
Yeah.
That is an attribute of God that we get to have.
Yeah.
We get to experience when we come. And you won't be able to experience that if you don't open yourself in that way to the Lord.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would really, really encourage people to make lamenting a big part of their lives. Because number one, first of all, there's a book called Lamentations. And you should really read that because it's really dark.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot of the Psalms are lamentations.
Yep.
A lot of the most faithful people are complaining to God all the time, you know, or, you know, lamenting to him. And I think the modern tendency, believe it or not, is to shy away from those negative emotions, to use Christian theology to be like, you shouldn't feel that, you know, because God has it under control. Therefore, what you're feeling, you shouldn't feel, right? And I think there is a place for that, because otherwise there's no hope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think this tendency to use that to shut our own emotions down or to shut other people's emotions down, I don't know if that's necessarily the right way.
Sure.
You know, and I see it in the life of Job, right? His friends used theology, and at the end, God was like, you guys had no idea what you're talking about. You guys did it totally wrong. Whereas Job did it right. And what was Job? The way he did it right was he was complaining the whole time. He was lamenting the whole time in the entire book. And God honored that.
Yeah.
And there's something about bringing the authentic self as it truly is, because then God has something to work with.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, just stuff that I think I was really convicted of as you guys were talking.
Yeah. No, I'm struck, and you know, in my own reading of the Bible, I can't tell you how many times I've read, whether it's the Psalms or it's Lamentations, or whether you investigate Jonah's story, or any of 100 different people in the Bible. I'm always so struck, and the phrase that I used to say a lot is like, can he really say that? Do you know what I mean? Like,
did he really say that?
Yeah, it's like, if he said that, can I say that?
No, that's right.
You know, it's this weird thing of like, maybe, just maybe, there's a rebuke here for those of us that need the rebuke. Of maybe we just need to read our Bibles again for us to see with our own eyes that the Holy Scriptures, which are, you know, like inerrant, that we believe in, you know, in the Christian doctrine, especially the Reformed Christian doctrine. If the Bibles are inerrant and those things are written in the inerrant Bible, you better look at those very carefully. And that'll give you a clue to how you are to live this life. It's not even permission. It's not even like the Lord is giving you permission to say it, as if it's kind of like $20 under the table for doing something. It's like, it's not permission. It is right there on the table. How deeply do you want me in your life? Do you want me this deeply? Then you'll be this honest with me. Do you want me more deeply? Then you need to be even more honest with me. And every day, it's like this weird sort of a back and forth, this tug of war of like, Lord, I only want you here. So I will only be honest with you here, and I will only be intimate with you up to this point.
Yeah.
Because any more, God, and I don't know that my heart can take it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can I highlight one thing that you said that I really like? I think people actually struggle with this idea. Hey, Abraham said it, but can I really say it?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm not Abraham. I'm not Moses. I'm not the Apostle Peter.
Yeah.
What I would like to encourage the people to remember is these were written, these lives were recorded so that we can read it and so that it can speak to your life. Meaning your life is to be a reflection of these things, and the reason why the Apostle Peter allowed the people who recorded the Gospels to write about his more quote unquote shameful moments, the times that he failed, is because he's trying to encourage people, just as I failed, you may fail, but you can have hope just like I had hope.
Yeah.
And so this whole, when Moses complains, that should be like, oh, hey, that's telling me that this is something that authentic spiritual life involves, and that's okay for you. And I really would like people to, because sometimes people have this, it's David. I'm just, no, this is for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was even right or beneficial for us to bring it to this place, right? Because we're three pastors around a table, and we have our staff meetings, and so much of our staff meetings, how it's postured is not what is wrong with our church, but it is what do we want to see in our church, and how can we facilitate those things, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if we might do that exercise to this thing called lamenting. And I wonder, what is the leader's job? What is the pastor's role in the endeavor to maybe try to get people to do this thing called lamenting that we're talking about, right? Is there even something there? Is it even helpful, or should we just hope and pray that people are having such intimate relationships with God that they're able to lament and take their lamenting so far, so close to that line, right? But never cross it because they just know God so well and so deeply. But it's but they get so close, like the Bible gets so close. How do we, as leaders, and how so much of the conversations that we have, it's I'll ask a question as a congregant, as a layperson, as someone who just is living their faith. This is more like a question of as a pastor, as a leader, as someone who's trying to do this thing called church leadership, pastoral ministry well. I mean, how do we allow our people to lament? What can we give them? What can we do for them? Is it space that we give them, or is it examples? Is it testimony? Is it, you know what I mean? My mind just goes there right now.
Yeah. I think part of it is what we're doing right now, normalizing this and trying to give good teaching as to, and this empowers people. Hey, this is allowable. And then that gives them some space to explore on their own. I also tried to do this a little bit actually during the middle of the pandemic, because people are trying to put a brave face on and stuff. And I remember it was the end of the year sermon for one of the years. I think it might have been 2021. And I was like, man, we have a lot to grieve.
Yeah, I remember.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
And trying to give people that permission, because people were trying to be strong. And after that sermon, people came up to me, somebody was in tears, and it's just wow, that's something I needed, And I think by us preaching about it, modeling it, also sharing that we do this, I think that's a big piece of it, per se. I'm not sure what it looks like to give people space in the church, plan out lamenting, per se.
Sure.
The only thing I can see is I see it happening in family groups. I remember one family group, somebody shared, and just actually a couple times, many times it's happened, they're just in tears, and they're sharing their grief and their sorrow, and then the spiritual direction groups that we're doing, you know, that's really a place that we can do that. So in those ways, but I think there has to always be this attachment of permission to each of these things. To be like, hey, it's okay. This is not like you're going to be in this and you're going to be this amazing disciple in this spiritual direction group. You're going to be in a family group. You're going to be, this great example of, a holy Christian or whatever, but really setting a proper expectation for what these venues are for.
Yeah.
And a lot of the spiritual direction books I'm reading about is they say you need to make these spaces so that people can come to them as their authentic selves. That's where the joys and the lamentations meet with God and growth happens. So that's kind of my short take.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think...
Is that another button?
No, but I think I really do agree. And I think like I learned in seminary that you shouldn't treat the pulpit as your therapy, which is true. And I would never share anything that would stumble somebody. If I knew, then I wouldn't share it. But I do think there is something about modeling it. Not every season is hard. Not every season is a wilderness season. And this message wasn't for everybody, to be honest. It's for that person that's going through a tough time right now. It's for that person that is feeling like they're walking through a dry and lonely land.
Sure.
It's for that person. But we are not exempt from that, right? And so it's like, how do we walk through this well? How do we suffer well? And because we are also being watched, believe it or not, by our people, right? How are we suffering well? And like, well gives it such I think that word brings a lot of pressure, but honestly, it's just like a part of, I think, our calling is to share and lead people in things, and especially the things that we've gone through. I don't think we're to withhold it from anybody. So I think being able to walk it out is a part of the way we do it. And definitely small groups, family groups. Those are the places where you're really going to get in it. But also like encouraging people, you got to do it for yourself. It can't just be
that's right.
You talking about it with somebody. It can't be you sitting here listening to me. It has to be you and God. That's where David starts. It's between him and God. So
it strikes me that we have this whole anachronistic sort of approach to our theme, right? Come awake. And
acronym? Not anachronistic?
I'm sorry.
I got confused.
I've reached for a word there. It is an acronym. Awake is an acronym. Alive, walking, activated, known, and engaged. And what strikes me is I knew that we would get there eventually, but there was a part of me that was always moved by the known. Right? Like, what do we mean by that? And how do we come awake? Like, in what way does being known allow us to come awake? And I wonder if this is a portion of that conversation where, like, how do we get people to... Okay, so if we can think about it one way, how do we get people to come awake through complaining/lamentation? And what do we do there? What is the arena? I wonder if one of the building blocks of creating successful lamenters is to just be known. Like, you're not going to lament if you're not known. Like, you're not going to come to... Like, the reason why we want you to come to a family group, the reason why we want you to come to a prayer meeting... The reason why we want you to come to Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday is because you are known by us and we want to minister to you. Aside from that, though, you need to be known by the Lord. Like, somebody who doesn't have a relationship with that, like, that's clear-cut evidence that you are not going to be a good lamenter. And by the way, to clear it again, by good lamenter, we don't mean perfect theologizer. We mean someone who does it consistently, regularly, and is so damn honest in their lamenting that it just brings them closer to the Lord, right? Like, you're not going to be a good lamenter if you are not known, firstly, by the Lord, but also by extension, because how does God's will play out in this world? Through the church, oftentimes. Through the local church, I should say. You got to let somebody know you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I could say a lot about that. Oh my God.
Like, let somebody know you. Like, those people who are just, and maybe it's our leaning, maybe it's our culture, maybe it's our ethnicity or whatever, but it's like, you got to let somebody know you.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to go, I'm so fed up with God right now because I've been praying for this one prayer for 2, 3, 20 years and it still hasn't. And it's like, who among us is going to, I'm not going to volunteer that information.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not just going to, like, it's in a relationship in which you are known.
Yeah.
Are you able to really practice well the thing of lamenting and complaining? And if it's not before people, then let it be before God. Like, yeah, how do you lament well? First, you got to be known. You got to know somebody else. You have to take that step of faith. You got to be humble. You got to do all those things. But yeah, I don't know. I'm struck because we just sort of stumbled upon that.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? What's cool about that is if you're doing it right, I think you should stumble upon it. You know what I mean? It should just be a natural outgrowth of, coming awake in the spirit. So, but yeah, I don't know. I love this because, actually one thing I do want to say is theology is actually good. But what good theology does is it helps you lament better. Because good theology gives you a better picture of who God actually is.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like when we say don't theologize, what we're saying is don't do bad theology. Do biblical theology.
Don't pretend theology here.
Yeah. Don't just read words on a page. Live it out. Practice it. I was just scrolling through Instagram and there was one Christian podcaster. Shout out. I don't even remember who it was, but I just came across something recently where like he was talking about another pastor, or he was talking about a seminary student, or I forget what it was, but it was the phrase of like, I don't believe in God. I'm just good at him. Right? It's the thing of like, there's a disconnect. There's a distance between people who like know God, really are known by him, and maybe some of us who we're just good at doing church. Like we're just good at doing this thing that we've done our entire life and being connected. And we as pastors, we're slowly but surely trying to shift paradigms and trying to break people out of those things. But I wonder, like, people, are we good at church? Are we good at God? Or do we really, really want to know him and be known by him? And I just think this is one of those things that helps us properly identify, right? You go to a doctor, they're supposed to diagnose you with whatever condition that you have. And I think symptomatically, like, we're just seeing all these things. And I was like, I don't know, have you lamented recently? Like, I don't feel close to God. Well, have you dared him to like work in your life? Like, have you ever got so at the end of yourself that you've said, Lord, you swore that you would do this thing, not me. So I hold you to your word, not mine. Like, have you ever gotten so desperate that you call out God on the stuff that he has like placed and promised in your life? Like, have you ever been so just at the end of yourself that you say, God, surely you have forgotten me, because if you remembered me, my enemies would not prosper, and I, who am trying to live rightly, am not like down in the dump. Like, have you ever gotten just so desperate that you've done that? Because I don't know, all three of us, we've at some point in our lives gone through those things, and I feel closer to the Lord than ever. And I might I don't know. I might get into a season where I feel far, but don't you worry. Like I'm gonna tell the Lord what I'm going through,
Yeah.
and He's gonna know. But like once He knows, then I'm gonna remember that I am known too.
Yeah.
You know, and so.
You know, it's interesting. I just thought of something that I said to God or yelled at God. I was like, when you're talking, Pastor Josh, about this whole known thing is, I actually yelled at him. I said, God, you know what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
You know what this feels like. You know how much this is stressing me out. You know how much I can handle. And I can't handle this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so please do something. And he answered like that.
Yeah.
Not that it always works that way, but
yeah. But you won't know unless you do it.
yeah.
You won't know unless you're brave enough to say, God, you know what I'm feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So, yeah. I like this. Probably a good place to
Land the plane.
Land the plane. Yeah, our encouragement, once again, is that you would know God, that you would be known by Him, and that you'd be so bold yet humble enough to just come before Him with your stuff. Give it to Him. Like, I dare you. If you're listening, if you're watching, I dare you. Be as honest as you can with the Lord. And let's try not to worry about, is this right? Is this theologically correct? Is this... how about this? Do it, and then like sift through all of that, and whatever was helpful, do it next time. Whatever was not helpful, just put off to the side, right? And it's that thing of like practice. Of it's work out your salvation with fear and trembling. It is the more you do it, the more reps you get, the more time on attention you get. You're just going to become stronger. We just know it. As 3 pastors, we know it. As 3 believers, we know it. You know, like, and we can go on and on and on. But I dare you. I dare you to be honest with Him and see what happens in your life. We're gonna kind of bring this discussion to a close, but just wanted to put some things on your radar if you don't know already. But we've been announcing this for a few weeks, but as we are getting nearer to the end of this season of Lent, which culminates in Good Friday and Easter Sunday, we're announcing a community Easter egg hunt that we did last year.
Yes.
And it was such a success that we wanted to do it again, right? So if you want to know more about that, you know, we're telling all of our people to bring a family member, bring a friend, especially if they have kids. This is going to be a wonderful opportunity for kids to sort of just run around and frolic. Hopefully the weather's good so they get to frolic in the field. But if not, you'll be with friends and people that love you and care for you. So come out to that Easter egg hunt. That's going to be the Saturday after Good Friday. If I remember correctly, it's Saturday, April 8th.
Yes.
So if you want more information on that, go to nmp.church, go to our link tree, you know, come up to one of the pastors or any of our leaders and you'll get more information on that. We have groups that are, clubs, I should say, that are rolling out. Pastor Key, you and I are on the NMPGA chat room, you know, Kakao Talk. And it's so very quickly became larger than just like a couple buddies going out and playing golf.
How many people are there?
There's like
a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. Last count maybe 13, 14. That I might be off. Yeah. But we're like starting this whole league system now. Like
I cannot.
Yeah, you can just play.
Wow.
Or
There's 17.
17, yeah.
Guys.
Like you can just play and organize just like going out. But now like for the others that want more, and I'm signing up. Don't you get me wrong, but it's like there's a whole league system that's happening. And so we have more clubs. We have bowling. We have Mercy Climbing. We have the book club. We have, I believe we have a brunch club.
Yep.
Which might be co-opted into a lunch and dinner club.
Just food club?
Just a food
club.
If you love
Mad
food
club.
Join that club. We have spiritual direction groups. I mean, when I think about all the things that are happening and sort of rolling out in this quarter, sort of in this time period, I get really excited about the life of our church in so many ways. And so be on the lookout for more things like that. And that'll do it from us here at NMPC Plus. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another new episode. So until then, we pray that you are blessed. This is NMPC Plus signing off for now.